another foundry car. Today we will discuss the original hot hatch for many, the Golf GTI. Is it the original hot hatch? This will be contradictory because, for example, there was a Renault derivative that was already a lot hotter, a Renault 5, but then made over again by a tuner, Alpine. We called the Alpine R5, which was earlier hot hatch, and there also were derivatives like the Mini Cooper, for example, Monte Carlo or whatever. So there were already hot hatches before that. But what did the Golf do that those other hot hatches did not? It brought the hot hatch to the masses. Why is that? The Golf was more reliable than those Alpines, more spacious, so more practical, and also it was quite a safe bet, so to say. So it was an all-round, it was not an out-and-out performance car. It was a car that was capable to perform, but also practical, reliable, and functional. Functional also in a way that it could cover big distances in a quite comfortable manner. Of course, the levels of comfort have changed a lot in time, but at that time it was a car that could do it all, and it was also a car that was achievable. So you could now have a sports car that you could also use as a daily, and it was accessible. It was not costing you to sell your kidney or whatever, like you would have to do also those times for 911, although a lot less than currently. I think now the 911 entry hybrids cost 237,000 euros in the Netherlands. That is thinking. Whereas a Golf GTI, current Golf GTI will be about 50,000 euros. So it's a little bit less than 25%. Of course, it will not be as capable to perform in a straight line or through the bends or on the track. The 911 will, of course, evaporate that Golf GTI. But if you would take it on all those levels, also accessibility, so the price, which is 25%, it still has the performance, not as much performance as those 911, but it has decent performance. It's practical and could be used as a daily car. Whereas the 911, it depends. If you have children, for example, it will not be as suited to perform that daily car role for you. For that, see if we can fix this. Well, sorta. We're back. So that's the thing. Also with the current evolutions of the Golf, once they stepped into the ring and gave it a 2-liter turbo engine, sky is pretty much the limit, because they also have the Golf R, which also has a 2-liter lump, which produces well over 300 horsepower stock. So with a little bit of tune, stage 1 tune or stage 2 that you also adapt a little bit of the exhaust pipe, you will have a car capable of reaching 400 horsepower. 400 horsepower in a Golf. And if you take the regular Golf GTI, or you also have the Golf GTI Club Sport at this moment, which already comes with 300 horsepower stock, you can also change that. For example, you can change out the turbos, and even those turbos can be replaced with even stronger ones. Then you go to stage 3, and then you will be seeing 450 to 500 horsepower, which is quite a lot. The benefit of the Golf GTI compared to the Golf Golf R, for example, is that the car is a little bit lighter, more nimble, and a lot cheaper. And once it gets going, it's not slower than a Golf R if it has the same horsepower. No, it might be even faster because you have less parasitic loss to the drivetrain. There are some differences though. The Golf R has all-wheel drive, which makes it more complex and heavier and more expensive to maintain and to just drive. But it has a lot of more traction. So the Golf R, for example, would evaporate earlier times 911s because it would have a lot more traction. True that all-wheel drive, it might not be the nicer car to drive or the more athletic car to exploit on the circuit, but it will be a car that is very capable in all conditions. So that would be the next level. You also had in the past the Golf R32, which had a 3.2 liter VR6, so 6-cylinder, but in a very compact V angle, so that it would fit in a 4-cylinder configuration. Also the same type of placement. Very nice type of car. Also very nice exhaust note and engine intake note. So it could also be a form of pleasure that the car sounds very nice. It might be one of the nicest sounding Golfs ever. But we are talking about the Golf GTI. So once it got that engine, it was very, very strong. And yeah, if you want a car that's very capable, it would have Evo levels of performance with a few modifications. So the Lancer Evolution power wise, it is a car that is nice to drive, accessible, it has an historic history. A lot of people attach it to be the original hothead, so you're driving the original in their view, which I explained is not my view. Also Honda, for example, had the City Turbo, which in my opinion was at least as hot as the Golf GTI, a lot hotter in my opinion. And there were also Abarths, also in those time frames. So I'll take that with a grain of salt. This is the first hothead for the match, for the masses, and that I will not take away from the Golf. But the only thing that's now hampering it, in my opinion, is price. 25,000 euros, 30,000 euros would be the equivalent of a car of the prices we might have had in the past days. Perhaps even more, like 30,000 euros, but now it's 50,000 euros, which is a lot. You could argue with me and say the performance also has exceeded a lot, and you would be right. But there are other cars now that have similar size to the original Golf GTI. For example, the Polo GTI, which is a little bit cheaper, but it's now also 45,000 euros about. So also an expensive car, or the car that I'm driving at the moment, which is currently sitting at 30,000 euros, Swiss Sport hybrid. And also that has a turbo engine that can easily be pushed to higher levels of performance with a chip tune. So even if you want more performance, it's also there. And it's a far lighter car, also more in the spirit. So also the Golf GTI has grown and safety issues are there, and they are mitigated, so the car has become heavier, stronger, heavier. But also Swiss Sport has become stronger, but not so much heavier because they use more high-tech approach. And that's something I like a little bit more. So you have a very nimble, playful car. And you could argue that the potential of the Golf GTI is far higher, also because there's so much in the VW Audi continuum that could be used there's so much more mass of people using it. Well, that's for the masses. So there's a lot more demand, and therefore also a lot more that is being offered. That's for sure. But the thing is, it's about 40% heavier, and that's a lot. So 40% heavier also implies that you have to have at least 40% more horsepower and torque. It might have 40% more horsepower, stock at least, not 40% more torque. And with the stage 1 tune, power to weight of this little car will be very close to that of Golf GTI. So the Golf GTI currently sits about 245 horsepower. It's 40% heavier, so if you take away, or for example, we can count the other way around. So if you have a Suzuki Sport Hybrid, you do a stage 1 tune only on the internal combustion engine, because it also has a little bit of hybrid engine, you will see a 170-ish horsepower. Add 40%, that's easier. So you add 68 horsepower to that because the weight difference. 68 horsepower will see you 238 horsepower, which is not 245, so still the Golf wins, right? Yeah. But if you look torque-wise, it will be sitting at 300 Newton meter. From the internal combustion engine with a stage 1 tune. Add 40% to that, and you will see 420 horsepower, 420 Newton meter, which is higher, a lot higher than a Golf. And then we have not talked about the electro engine that is also that Suzuki Sport Hybrid, that's the name Hybrid, which is able to add up to 14 horsepower. So if it will be added on top, 238 added 14 horsepower, you will exceed it of the Golf GTI. Also power to weight. Also it has like 60 Newton meters of torque, so if you add that to the 420 Newton meter we already talked about to make it the same weight as the Golf, then you will see almost 500 Newton meter compared to the same weight of the Golf, which is humongous, of course. So you can imagine that you have a stronger car in average conditions, because there's so much more torque and so much horsepower in the entire region. It must be said though that the electro engine and the internal combustion engine will not peak at the same RPM, so it cannot be added to peak levels. What it can be added to is the area on the curve. So the lower RPM range, it will be even fatter. And oftentimes you're not exploiting a car to the highest RPM range, especially if you also use the hot edge for its purpose to be used as a practical car, and also today as a practical car it does not always have to be heated to the operating temperature, so you cannot exploit the higher RPMs without damaging the car, the engine. And also if it's a practical car, you will not be sitting at high RPMs regardless, because you also want to save a little bit of fuel, and you don't want to draw too much attention, and you might be also carrying some other passengers. So there are some reasons that a fatter curve that's a little bit lower might be more interesting to you. That's that. The other thing is to take into consideration that the Suzuki Sport is a Suzuki, which offers 6 years of warranties, whereas Golf is a VW, Volkswagen, and it offers 2 years of warranty. So the reliability, if you can extrapolate those years of warranty compared to the reliability, it would be 3 times as reliable. Which is a funny thing, if you want a car that's also the original spirit of the old edge for the masses, will be more interesting. So it's more accessible, it's half the price. price. When I bought it, it's now at 60% of the price. It has performance, which can be made very easily, 500 euros, 600 euros, something like that, and you will have the same performance. It is more reliable, it's more accessible, not only in terms of pricing, but also in terms of running costs, so for example fuel consumption, but also road tax, insurance, components, maintenance, etc. And it is almost as practical. It's a smaller car, so you will lose a little bit of interior room, but still you have 5-door capacity, and it's a car that's a lot more roomy than a Golf 1. It's more roomy than a Golf 2. It will be, in my opinion, very close to Golf 3 levels of interior room. So that taken into consideration, you have a very nice package. It's also a lot more playful because it's so much lighter. If you do a track just running and you are 40% heavier with a backpack or whatever, you will feel that difference. So you might have so much more power and sprinting capacity that you will be as fast on straight lines, but into the corners you will feel that difference. And also for the braking performance, for example, you will get a lot easier overheated brakes with a heavier car. So there are some things to take into consideration there. It's not that Golf GTI doesn't have its perks. It does. It might also be a lot more expensive than 50,000 euros to buy currently in the Netherlands. Might be even 60,000 euros. So there we're talking that you could buy Suzuki Swift Sports for you and your wife for the same price. Talk about practicality. So just take it into consideration. In my opinion, also, I like the looks of the Swift Sports more. It has a nicer body kit. It also has the dual exhaust pipes that you see in the Golf. It's a lot more playful, less serious, and less bland. You could have a serious look that stands out, but for my taste, the Golf is just a little bit changed to make the Golf GTI. So some subtle change to the side skirts, front bumper and rear bumper, and a little bit lowered and dual exhaust pipe. Next to some nice rims. That's it. And you will get all those things also for the Suzuki Swift Sports, but then turned up a little bit more. Also to take into consideration, the Golf is not the fastest VW. Suzuki Swift Sport is the halo car of Suzuki. A small thing to take into consideration there. And there are other cars. I would also argue with you that if you are looking for a Golf GTI, you should not be overlooking the Polo GTI, which is a little bit lighter, a little bit cheaper, and at least as much fun to drive as a result. The technology that they will have accessible VW will have accessible for the Golf will be a little bit higher, like limited slip differential, something like that, than with the Polo, but on average it's a nicer car to drive. Also the Fiesta ST, but it's no longer being sold. Also the Suzuki Swift Sport is no longer being sold, so that's tough love. It's the latest, the last of the Mohicans, so to say. Yeah, it's a pity that they are going down the drain. All the old hatches are leaving, and I only think that at this time in the B segment we have the Polo GTI, and in the C segment the Golf GTI, so that's a big thing. And I also want to add that to the VW conversation. They keep the old hatch, which is mighty expensive when you buy them from VW, but they keep it alive so far. I will be interested to see if the next generation will still have Golf Golf GTI, but especially the Polo GTI will survive new generation. I don't know for sure. I thought it would, but if you now see that the last of the Mohicans that's still kicking, it might be a tough cookie. Golf is a little bit placed higher and more to the hyper edge, because they also have the Golf R, which is even more insanely capable and also expensive. But expensive is a relative thing if you compare it to the 911 as I mentioned. It's still a good bargain. They can also be quite easily tuned to almost the same level of performance. So yeah, there's some things to take into consideration here, and I really love it that they keep the hot hatch formula alive, although they have changed it a lot. But still, if you drive a Golf, you have a car that can do everything. So it's a practical car, performance car, and it's also a lot hotter and nicer to drive and to sit in than a regular one. Hope this helps. Wish you a great day, and I hope that the Golf GTI will keep pushing and doing its thing. Also, it's the hot hatch with the longest history, because it is continuously being pumped out and also still going, whereas other brands are leaving. Ford, for example, even has terminated the Focus and the Fiesta completely. Not only the sporting models, but all the models. It's such a pity. Ciao!